Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to the Property Podcast. I'm Rob B with Rob D, and we've just finished recording this episode, and I'm going to make a big claim. I believe that this will be one of our top 5 episodes of the year. This is a must listen. I really do believe if you listen and follow at least half of what we talk about in this episode, you are going to have an amazing 2022. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Property Podcast, where every Thursday morning property investors come to be informed and inspired. And indeed, Happy New Year. It's great to have you here with us. Yep, stick with us for the next 20 minutes or so, and you will have the perfect way to set up your year. So make sure you've got some means of taking notes, because we've got loads of great ideas and tools coming your way.
We have, but before we start, we want to give you another tool. Because if you're taking property serious in 2022, you want all the tools. You want to set yourself up for success, right? Well, if you're not subscribing to the Property Hub magazine, then you are missing a trick, because the Property Hub magazine is a great addition to your 2022 and tackling all your big property goals, because you'll be inspired, because you've got all success stories in there about people who've been there and done it and how they did it, more importantly. You'll also get to hear from Rob and I in our respective articles and what's on our mind in that particular issue. And loads of tips that just don't work in the audio form and that we can write down and really just get different messages over to you. Now, it's only a $5 per issue, and you can sign up for a year at a time to make it super simple. It comes out every other month. It's a great resource. Take advantage of it. Go to propertyhub.net/magazine and get yourself signed up.
Now, as you might know, if you're a regular listener to the Property Podcast, we launched something called Portfolio, which is an app that makes it possible to invest in a property fund via your phone. We were so excited about launching that towards the end of last year. And just because the year was drawing to a close, we didn't get lazy, because we had some very big news right at the end of the year, Rob.
Yeah, so of course, as property investors, this is a dream for us, because we get to look at all these incredible properties. And we've invested in incredible property. In fact, it's hard to believe where we're at so early on, but we have invested in the UK's highest penthouse property. The UK's. There is no place higher in the UK than you can live. All right, yeah, maybe if you pitch a tent up at the top of Snowdon, you could say you're higher. But in terms of normal property, this is the highest. That is a very prestigious property. That is ridiculously exciting for us, Rob. And hopefully, perks of the job and all that, we'll get to visit it too.
Yep, we may just have a very special podcast planned from there in the future. So listen out for that one, because that's going to be good. And in the meantime, if you'd like to find out more about what Portfolio is, you can visit portfolio.co.uk. Lucky you. You've got a brand new year to play with. Whatever has gone before doesn't matter. This is a brand new start. This year is whatever you want it to be. And so in this episode, we're going to share some ideas for how to have your best property year ever. Rob, I'm excited about this. We've covered many of these ideas before, but they are so fundamental, so important. They deserve repeating, and this is the perfect time of year to do it.
It absolutely is. I mean, bit of a reveal. We weren't planning to do this episode, but we got so pumped about talking about the year ahead and how we can make it the best possible version for us that we thought, this is not fair. We need to share this. Now, you're probably approaching this from a property point of view, listen to this, and absolutely, by applying what we're going to talk about, will help you with your property endeavours, whatever you want to achieve. This episode is massively going to help you. But the bonus is it will help you across everything you do in life. These are things that we've either done or are intending to do this coming year. And we'll talk about which we've done and which we haven't yet. But this stuff works. A lot of it is tried and tested, whether by us or trusted people we know. So we're really giving you the good stuff here. And Rob, every year should start with, and a lot of people just start with this and stop, but you absolutely need to start with it by deciding what you want or setting out your goals.
Yeah, so important. And like you say, this can't just be the finishing point, but this must be the starting point. And we'll talk about how to actually achieve those goals in a minute. But you really must set goals. I didn't last year, and I regret it, because when I look back, I got some things done, made progress in different areas, but I'm sure I would have got so much more done, and I probably would have worked on the things that really mattered to me if I'd had written goals. It's the first year in a long time when I didn't do it, and I really regret it. So don't make that mistake. Do set goals, and we've done episodes specifically about goal setting in the past. We'll make sure that those episodes are linked in the show notes. But the real two basics about goals: Firstly, make sure that they are smart. The shortcut version of that is make sure that it's really clear, try and put a number on it, make it something that you'll know when you've achieved it rather than, oh, I want to get rich this year. And secondly, write them down. Writing down your goals forces you to get clearer about them. And there's also some kind of magic in actually writing something down, especially if you then put it somewhere visible and review them often. So that's the real basics of goals. But Rob, when you are coming up with goals, something you mentioned when we were talking before that's important to get right is having themes for your goals.
Yeah, because when you start the year, you may have a real focus, and your focus might be, right, I really want to succeed in property investment this year. And you'll have goals about how many properties you want to invest in, and that's fantastic. But if you neglect everything else, you may get halfway through the year and decide, oh, this other thing's really important to me. But because you haven't addressed that in your goal setting, you may feel like, oh, it's taken me away from my main goal, and then not give it the attention. So for an example, it might be fitness. So at the beginning of the year, break your goals down into themes. So it can be wealth creation or property specifically. It could be fitness. It could be spirituality. It could be family. It could be adventures. The list is up to you. There is no set list that you must work to. Some of the themes will not be of interest to you, and some that I've not mentioned will be really important to you. I've just given you a few examples. I use some of them and more. But then once you've decided on those themes, if you break them in, I write my goals down, like physically write them down rather than a spreadsheet, but you can do both. Once you've done the themes, then try and add at the beginning of the year some goals in each section, even if that particular section isn't as important to you at the beginning of the year, just so you can make some progress against them. And then what is really useful is to then look at it month by month and go, okay, what's one action I can take against these goals this month? Now, it doesn't have to be, I want to become a property investor this year, and January is become a property investor. It could be January, start to network and start to meet people who have invested in property. That is a step towards your goal. You haven't become a property investor, but you're a step closer than you were before. So by breaking it down into themes and then breaking it down month by month, and at the end of each month, stopping and going, okay, what am I going to do next month to progress this goal? That action alone, that process that I've just described, will make your year far more successful than most years you've had before if you've not done it before. It really, really does work because you're focusing on making progress each and every month. And spoiler, if you have lots of themes and lots of goals, you're not going to hit them all. But if you do this, you will hit far more than you would have if you just listed a few goals at the beginning of the year and then did nothing else.
Definitely. And if you do have them broken down into steps like that, then it means you're always going to be working on your goals, and you're not going to suddenly get to October and go, oh yeah, I had a goal to do that, didn't I? I should have done something with that. And another way to help that is to keep your goals visible, because even if your goal is so important to you, there's no chance that you're going to forget that you're meant to be doing it. Still, there's something about just looking at your goal often. So it could be something left open on your desk, it could be pinned to the mirror, it could just be in notes on your phone, somewhere where you're going to see it. Keeping your goals top of mind is really important. And something else that I find really helpful is distinguishing between event goals and process goals. So to give a really simple example, if you have an event goal of running a marathon, then that can be very distant, it can feel hard and intimidating, and maybe you never do it. But if you've got a process goal, and that process can just be, I want to go for a run 4 times a week, then that's much easier. No individual run feels that intimidating. And if you just carry out the process, the event almost takes care of itself. So where possible, if you can take an event goal and turn it into a process goal, that then makes it feel a lot less intimidating. And it's also something that you're naturally going to work on more consistently. So in property terms, it depends on what you want to do. But if your goal is, well, I want to buy a property this year, well, that's the kind of thing where you could very easily find reasons to put it off and not get round to it. And suddenly you are at the end of the year and it's a bit too late. But if you focus on, well, what's the process that I need to do to make that happen? Maybe it's just like the process is I need to go on Rightmove twice a week and inquire about properties that fit my criteria. If you follow that process, yes, you then need to actually follow through and go to the viewing or whatever, but the eventual goal should largely take care of itself without it feeling like a huge effort. So loads of little tips there about goals. Having goals is important. Setting good goals and the right goals and doing it in the right way is far better than doing what most people do, which is having like vague, ill-defined, poorly thought through goals. But Rob, like I said back at the start, even if you've got great goals, that is only the very first step of the process. You need to do more than that.
Oh, you do. And we've got much more to give you, starting with reviewing. And it could be reviewing your goals, as we mentioned already, but just a reflection review. So looking back and going, okay, what have I achieved? Now, there are so many different ways to do this. So one example I've given you already is at the end of each month, looking back, okay, what have I achieved that month? What progress have I made? And then setting your goals for the following month. But it could be a daily reflection. Okay, what's gone well today? What's a lesson I've picked up today? What was a win today? What you choose can be up to you. But by reviewing your progress at a set frequency is really powerful, particularly if you can look at lessons as well. Yes, looking at what you've achieved is great and it will motivate you to carry on. But also picking up the lessons from your week or your month or your day is really powerful stuff. It's something I've done before in business, and it's something that I've stopped. And we'll talk about why I stopped and what I could do about to fix it a little bit later on in the episode. But it's something that I absolutely want to start again, certainly at least in business, is to go, okay, what are the lessons of this week? What have I learned? Because it's really, really powerful stuff. And you can apply that to property. If you're in business, you can do it in business, or you can just do it in wider life as well. We're learning all the time, right, as humans. So by disciplining yourself to stop and take reviews at a set period of time is really, really powerful. Something I've done once before and something I absolutely want to start doing again.
Yeah, I've never been very good at reviews and being disciplined about it, but every so often I'll kind of realise that I haven't reviewed for a long time, and I'll do it, not on any kind of schedule, to kind of do it and go, oh no. But then actually I find that really useful, because I'll notice that I have drifted off track with certain things, or I'll identify a theme that keeps coming up that needs to be worked on. And it would have been better if I'd done that review on a schedule, but the fact that I've done it in the end is really helpful. I'm always glad when I have done it, and I should make an effort to do it more regularly. So reviews are something that you do every so often. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, can be whatever you want it to be. But there's something else that you can do on a daily basis, which is tracking your habits. And habits are really important, because it's a bit like the process goals I talked about earlier. Because if you get the habits right, the little micro behaviors that you do all the time, then not everything else, but a lot of it just gets taken care of automatically. So Rob, how do you think about habits? What habits do you try to develop and track, and how do you do that?
Again, this falls under something I've done before, but I've stopped recently. And I've actually downloaded an app just before we started recording this episode to get things back on track, because I've felt that against some of my goals this year, I've drifted. And that's because I haven't developed a strong enough habit yet. And for me, that just reinforces how powerful it is and why I'm so keen to get back on track. And this year, 2022, be very disciplined and make sure that I have set habits. And Rob, that very much links back to the process goals you set before. You know, those process goals are habits, and making sure I have a way of tracking those habits and sticking to them is by writing the goals down. But also, as I've said, you can use apps, and there's other things you can do as well, which we'll talk about. But habits is definitely something I've done before, found incredibly useful. And the great thing about this time of year is kind of do reflect and then set yourself up to go again. And okay, what did I not get right last year? Well, this is definitely one of those things for me. And you know what? It's so easy to make excuses. I could tell myself a story now of why I didn't do it last year. Oh, well, we launched Portfolio and it was super busy and this, that, and whatever going on. It's all rubbish. We can all tell ourselves a really convincing story. But if you're listening to some of this so far and you found yourself telling yourself some of those stories, whether it was, you know, why you can't do goals or weekly or monthly reviews or now habits, just have a word with yourself. It is a story. It's not true. You can always do these things. It's just prioritizing them. So, Rob, I can't preach this morning about how I smashed my habits last year and how I tracked them all and I delivered on everything I wanted to. I didn't. But I'm going in to 2022 with the best intentions and a lot of resolve to make this a focus and really get some core habits down and tracked and followed up on to make sure I deliver upon them.
And I think you'll have a wonderful 2022 as a result of doing that, because it's easy to have intentions, but unless you're conscious about what you want to be doing and you track it, you will drift off course. And the tracking for me, I think, is really important. So whether it's an app or something a bit more manual, but having it as something that you need to tick off every day, it's basic, but it's really powerful. When you've got a streak going, especially if it's in an app that looks nice and it makes it really visible and you've been doing for something for 3 weeks, you're not going to want to miss a day because it will break your streak and you'll feel really bad about it. So by doing that, by having the tracking in place is a way of staying accountable to yourself. Especially if you use an app, it's really easy to get it to sort of like pop up at a set time each day and say, did you do this? And it's just a way of like giving you that nudge and holding you accountable and catching you at one of your not so good moments and reminding you of the person that you want to be and what you said that you'd be doing. And go, okay, fine. I said I'd do that. I better do it. And that is powerful. But accountability, Rob, doesn't just have to be to yourself. And this is something you hinted at earlier when you were talking about reviews.
Accountability is massively powerful. Yeah. So when the reviews, having a business coach and knowing that I had to turn up each week and go through my weekly review made me do it. And when I stopped working with that business coach, did I carry on? No. What changed? The accountability part. Accountability sounds simple. And you know what? It's because it is. But the simple can be incredibly powerful. And this is why you see accountability work in so many different areas. Having a business partner, for example, makes you accountable. Would this podcast have gone on all these years without never missing a week if it was just one of us? I don't think so, Rob.
No way.
I don't know. Maybe you're better than me, but...
No way. No. I used to have my own podcast. It was not weekly, and then it stopped.
Yeah, and I dabbled with other stuff as well, podcast-wise, many years ago, and some weeks it went out and some weeks it didn't. It just didn't happen. The accountability part is probably the biggest game changer all these things are game changers. If you've not done any of these things before, or most of these things before, oh my goodness, if you start implementing them, what a year you're going to have. But to make sure you start implementing them, accountability is huge. Now, it can be done in so many different ways. It can be someone you pay, or it can be something informal. So a lot of people will be now thinking property, I need a mentor. I better go and pay someone. You don't need to do that. You can just work with other people that you meet in networking groups and tell them what you're going to do that week and then deliver upon it and go back and tell them you've done it. That's an informal way of staying accountability because you're publicly sharing your goals on what you're going to do that week. Then you run the risk that someone's going to ask you how it went. That is accountability. So you feel like, I better do it in case that person asks me. You can find mentors that you don't have to pay for. People who are just more experienced, who love what they do, and this applies to property and beyond, who want to help you. Might be a friend or a family member who's further on a particular subject that you want to be good at, whether it's property or something else. Ask them, can you help me? Can you help me stay accountable to making steps and progress towards what I want through property or health or whatever else? And yes, Rob, you can pay for it as well. And working with experts is really powerful. I do want to say from the off that the working with experts part, I think, works better outside of property because unfortunately, the working with experts part has been hijacked a lot in property and there are a lot of people out there who charge a lot of money for delivering very little. But I don't want to put people off the idea of working with experts overall because it can be hugely powerful. And in fact, you've benefited from that yourself last year.
Exactly. If you can combine the accountability with the knowledge and guidance of someone who really knows what they're talking about and has your best interests at heart, that can be super powerful. So I started working with a personal trainer last year, and that provided two things. Firstly, the accountability. He's a big bloke, a bit scared of him. And he made me track my calories every day, so I did. And I turned up at the gym because I had an agreed time when I had to turn up to see him. So therefore, I did it. Not that different from turning up to do this podcast. Because once you've made an appointment with someone, you can't just not show up. But then the knowledge was really important as well. Because it wasn't a subject that I knew that much about. And you can kind of like read things from the internet and have a guess and things like that. And I'd done that before, but I hadn't got that far. But by having someone with deep knowledge of a subject, they can spot mistakes that you're making that you wouldn't even know that you were making and put you back on the right track. And as a result, your results are so much better. So if you can get that magic combo of accountability plus expert knowledge, and as a result of the experience that I've had, as I'm going to think about my goals for 2022, I'm starting to think for each goal, is there someone I can work with to help me with this? Maybe not for the whole thing, but maybe just to kind of come in and have a session with once or twice or something to get me on the right track. So it's something that I'm going to try to make more use of because I've seen the power. But I think, Rob, what you said about in property is really interesting because I feel exactly the same way. So many people in property feel like they need to have a mentor or a coach in order to succeed, almost like you can't succeed without it. And I think that's because for marketing reasons, that's been drilled in and it's kind of coming at you from all sides. That's not the case. But if you can do what you said earlier and find someone or a group of people who you're not paying and it's not a structured thing, but they're happy to help you, they'll hold you accountable, and they've got their own knowledge and ideas to share, then that really can help you in property to achieve what you want to achieve.
The group of people is a really good one. We haven't got that down in the notes, but I think that's a really powerful one as well. Sometimes it's referred to as a mastermind group. It sounds very grand, but it's just a group of people who share their knowledge and experience. You could set up an accountability mastermind with people you meet at networking groups who maybe are on a similar level to you. And actually, that could be a good thing because you can share your learnings and what you've picked up over the last week or month, depending on the frequency of how often you get together. But you can set that up, drive that yourself, find some people who are in a similar place as you and go, okay, shall we set up an accountability mastermind or group and get together once a month and talk about what we've learned and what we've progressed on and what we're going to do the next month. My goodness, if you do that, your progress will be astonishing. You will progress more towards your property goals. And it's not hard to do. It just requires a bit of effort to go and meet some people at a networking group or online and then say, hey, do you want to start this thing? And you know what? Most people will probably want to do it because they don't get offered those opportunities very often. So a little bit of effort goes a long way. And I think this sums it up, this episode, Rob. Like, you and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but we're just normal blokes. But what we do to have some level of success, and people will say that we've had some level of success, is that we've just followed at least a chunk of what we've discussed in this episode each and every year. And some years it's been some things and some years it's been others, but we've always done at least some of what we've talked about in this episode. And it's just doing the simple stuff that makes you win. And you know, there are no secrets. Like, the simple stuff is there. The secrets to success aren't secret. They're out there. You know, we talked about them in this episode. Okay, you're not going to become a billionaire in the first year of doing this, but I tell you what, if you do all we've talked about for 10 years, then you are going to be in a very special place in a decade's time. The thing is, most people listening to this podcast will not do it. They'll listen, they'll be entertained, and they'll move on, and they'll look at something else on the phone, and off they go. You know what? If you've enjoyed the episode, then fine, but don't be that person. You, listening now, take this, do something with it, and progress, and become a better version of yourself. You know, that's what life's about, right? Just going, okay, I've failed at these things in life, wherever it might have been. I want to be better than that. How can I be better? Well, these are the tools, people. These are the tools. Go and use them and have an amazing 2022.
Okay, well, we've given you so many ideas, so many tools to use in this episode, but we've still got time for a bit more. We've still got time for Hub Extra. It's the part of the show where we do give you that little bit extra, whether it's a book, a resource, a quote, an idea, whatever it is that's going to make your life a little bit better. And to also make your life a little bit better, the Hub Extra email lands in the inboxes of Property Hub members every Friday morning. So go to propertyhub.net and sign up there if you haven't already. So Rob, we've got a whole collection of tools for Hub Extra this week. And these are all apps to help you track what you do this year. And that tracking can be in different forms. So we talked about tracking your habits. That's a really basic, important one to start with. So there are loads and loads of habit tracking apps. If you go onto the App Store for whichever device you use, you will find tons, and you can just play around and find the one that works for you. A kind of a fun one that our producer Dan has recommended is called Habitica, which gamifies habit tracking. It's kind of a bit like an old school RPG. It's kind of geeky and cool, and I like it. And you can do it on your own, or you do it with friends for a bit of bonus accountability. But there are loads of different apps out there. But Rob, your tracking doesn't have to stop with just habits.
No, you can track what you've done, like, and look back retrospectively and say, okay, well, how's it gone? And you can do it on any level. Like, you can do it with podcasts. Spotify will let you know what your top podcasts are each year. They do a year in review. Of course, you can look at the property podcast being number one, and then whatever else comes after that. You can also look at your exercise. You know, Strava looks at your hikes, your runs, your walks, your rides, whatever you want to do, any form of exercise. You can log it there. And it gives you all different charts that you can look back at and go, okay, how far have I run this year? What were my average runs? What was my longest run? It gives you so much data. Some of it is for free, and some of it you have to pay for if you want more information. Strava's great. There's loads out there. There's so much. It's just, okay, thinking about it, okay, I want to do this particular action, whether it's listen to the property podcast every single week or go for multiple runs each week, and go looking on the App Store. Because the great thing about the App Store now is there's nearly an app for everything. Did you know you can invest in property through an app now as well? Portfolio. So think of what you want to do. Think about what you want to track and go and search for it. I'm sure it will be there. And I tell you what, if it's not, there's a goal because you've got a business idea.
Well, we are well in the habit of recording the property podcast. We've been doing it every week for, was it coming up for 9 years? It's too long, but we're going to keep going throughout 2022. And we've got a fantastic run of episodes coming up that I'm really excited about. I'm particularly excited about next week's episode, where we're going to be giving our predictions for 2022. Giving that a lot of thought over Christmas, and we haven't talked about each other's yet. So I'm excited to see what we both come up with. So make sure you join us for that next Thursday. And until then, go set those goals, get that habit tracking in place, and make sure that you have an awesome 2022. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.